Two. Welcome back to the final episode of the PGA Tours season 2021-2022. We are at the Tour Championship at East Lake in Atlanta, Georgia. The top 30 have been named. They are ready to get started. Number 1, Scotty Scheffler, all the way down to number 30, Will Dog's boy, Aaron Wise. I'll be shocked if that name doesn't come off the list for his picks tonight, but we'll see if he wants to be strategic or he wants to go with the hometown favorite up there in Eugene. And here we are. We got Will Dog and myself. Mr. G and Mr. Joe are with us in spirit as always, our brothers. But we are getting right into this thing. A lot of news around the PGA Tour. We're going to save that for another day. We have a long off season ahead, so we have plenty to talk about there. Monahan released his official 2023 new rules and everything to come with that, schedule-wise, what it means for Korn Ferry Tour players, all that. We'll save that for another day. Lots to talk about, as I said. But we're at East Lake. What are you thinking, Willie? Is this going to come down to the ranking system that they've adopted with this tiered start? And what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a tough one for me because I don't love the tiered start with Scotty getting the head start. But I understand why you have to do it. You don't want two people holding up the trophy at the end of the year. You want one FedEx Cup champion. You don't want a Tour Championship winner and a FedEx Cup champion. Kind of takes the fire out of it. So I understand they want one champion and they have to do it this way. And Scotty played the best all year, so he gets the head start. And I think giving the best player all year a two-stroke head start is tough. I think it's going to be tough to catch Scotty. But at the same time, over the course of 4 days, a lot of stuff can happen and a lot of catching up can be done. So you got guys like Rory and Finau and Burns that can, and I mean, Cantlay and Xander. Xander is known for playing well at East Lake. So these guys can go really low. And if Scotty goes even or one over one day, then they're right back in it. And it's an even playing field. So he's got a little bit of a head start. It'd be tough to bet against him. I think this is a tough tournament to bet in general. We'll see. It's a little funky viewing with only 30 players in the field. You know, I'm used to waking up here on the West Coast and golf's already on. And 30 players, it goes a little slower out there and tee times are a little later. So we'll see. Looking forward to it as always. 30 best golfers of the year all playing in one spot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely a little bit of a later start. I don't think things get started till 10 or 11 on the East Coast here. But thinking back to what you did mention about having two players hoist trophies at the end of this week, the Tour Championship trophy and then the FedEx Cup trophy. I think the last year that they had two winners was the year Tiger Woods won in 2018. And that was a little weird. You know, Tiger won the Tour Championship and then was a few points away from winning the FedEx Cup, but Justin Rose ended up winning that. And if we think about it, if Tiger was in this situation where he played well enough to win the stroke play event, he probably wouldn't have won with this tiered system. He probably would have still been a few strokes behind. So interesting to think about that. Obviously glad Tiger did get his 80th win there in Atlanta at East Lake, but it's very interesting to think that he very well might not have if this system was adopted a year sooner.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because he probably wouldn't have won. He would have started a little farther back. I don't even know where he was in the FedEx Cup before he won that. But the fact that I think you have to be in the top 5 or 6 going into East Lake if a win guarantees you the FedEx Cup. But they advertise the season-long race for the FedEx Cup, and they incentivize you to get the season started early and start racking up those points. So I understand where they're coming from, where it's more of a season-long thing that still ends with I mean, the FedEx Cup points in the playoffs are so elevated. So if one guy gets hot and wins one of them and finishes top 5 in another, then like, even though Scotty played the best all year, he could easily drop down to 2 or 3. So it's truly a season-long thing, and I understand why they have to make it that way. But kind of takes away from the tournament a little bit where you're not watching a stroke play event starting from scratch.
I know, and it would be cool to have a stroke play ticker alongside or a way for the fans to keep track of who is doing well stroke play wise, because you know Adam Scott has been doing well in this postseason, but he's starting at even 10 strokes back. and he could have a great tournament and still finish 6th back. You
Yeah.
never know. But one thing I wanted to point out on that mention of the season-long emphasis is one of Monahan's new rules for the 2022-2023 season upcoming is that we will see all 30 of these players at Kapalua. Shout out to Willy wearing the Kapalua hat right there for the Century Tournament of Champions. So this year, of the 30 that will be going, 8 of these players did not win. Of note, Colin Morikawa did not win in the 2022 season, but he will be back at Kapalua for the Tournament of Champions coming up this year because of his season-long play. He was well enough all season to get into the Tour Championship, and you could say deserving of that spot in the Tournament of Champions, although he wasn't a champion this year.
Yeah, that's also a tough one. The qualifying criteria has always been you got to win a tournament. They've harped themselves on that, and every player talks about getting that win so they can get back to Kapalua, especially I don't know, they play in January and February, and most of the country is experiencing a harsh winter, and you see those beautiful days in Hawaii. So it's where every player wants to go, but they're making it an elevated event now. So in theory, all the top players are supposed to be there. And if you're in the top 30 in the FedEx Cup and you didn't have a win during the year, you're playing some pretty exceptional golf. So you probably deserve to be there. And the fact that it's elevated and they've got this new structure that they announced today, I think you have to have all those best guys there because that's what they're saying, that all the best guys are going to be playing in all the same spots for these elevated events. So if you're going to advertise that, you got to make it happen.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll keep calling it the Tournament of Champions, if they'll maybe rename it. But the elevated events is a great thing for the game of golf, more money in their pockets. It kind of echoes a little bit of what a lot of LIV supporters are talking about. Great gif of Jay Monahan and Greg Norman saying, "Can I copy your homework? Sure, but just change a few things around."
Yeah.
But yeah, the elevated events. So I think as of now, there's 12 plus events and then the majors, so 16 or 17 events in total that all the top players will be at. I'm a Spieth fan, so I'll use Spieth as an example. He played all but one of them this year, so it's not like these guys are adding a bunch of tournaments to their schedule. These are the memorial tournaments at Jack's Place. The one that Spieth missed this year was Arnold Palmer's tournament at Bay Hill, but he's been there plenty of times in the past. So all tournaments that we expect to see the big names at, the big tournaments. And there's still 4 to be named. So that's what I'm really thinking about. They said in 45 days or so, we'll have the final 4 elevated tournaments named. I'm sort of expecting, a Torrey Pines for the Farmers Insurance. Willie, I think you mentioned like maybe Waste Management. I also am hopeful. I don't know if I think for sure or not yet, but I'm a little hopeful that maybe the Canadian Open and the Scottish Open get elevated so that more people are playing national opens.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of going to be a fun guessing game over the next 45 days to guess what they're going to choose. I'm sure the sponsors of those tournaments and the venues are submitting some bids, and the PGA Tour is going to kind of auction those off to the highest bidder. It'll be interesting how they choose the elevation. Like you said, I think Scottsdale is right before Riviera. I think you said that, and that's an elevated event. So do you have a back-to-back event? And then typically the Scottish is before the Open. So do you have the elevated event before the Open? So it'll be an interesting schedule thing. I'm sure things could be moved around and they're flexible with that. But yeah, that'll be a fun speculative game over the next 45 days to see what course they're going to pick.
Yeah, that is interesting because the official schedule is released. I suppose they could change things around if they wanted to still, but as of now, like you said, Scottsdale's right before Riviera, and the Scottish Open's right before the British Open, and the Canadian Open's right before the U.S. Open. So it will be interesting. There is almost guaranteed to be some back-to-back elevated events, though, I have to imagine. Also, Texas, they have 4 events in Texas every year, at least 3 events in Texas every year. So maybe one of those gets elevated, but we will see about that. Going to be exciting. Like you said, a guessing game, something to keep us on our toes throughout the off season. Don't have a whole lot on LIV. We did think it was a little bit funny. One player is suing an announcer
and Golf Channel.
So a little bit more on that. Patrick Reed for $750 million targeting Brandel Chambly. And some of the quotes of what he's heard on the golf course
Are hilarious.
are quite hilarious. Whether you support the guy or you think he's a cheater, I think it's good to have the villain in golf. And he went from Captain America to this big villain with cheating controversy. But look up those quotes, see what he said he's been hearing on the course for yourself. And we'll see what happens with that lawsuit. Obviously, the first LIV versus PGA lawsuit was in favor of the PGA Tour. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, LIV is coming to Boston Labor Day weekend, this next weekend. I will not be in town for that. I'll be out of town and we'll be missing the LIV event. So no LIV events for any of us 19th Fairway boys in the first year, the inaugural year, but we'll see what the schedule turns out to be like next year. And, we want to get to as many events as possible in the future, both PGA and LIV. Heck, I want to go see more college events, LPGA events. I just want to see it all. So
amateur events.
Yeah, I love it. I'm all about the amateur game. I think the up and comers, especially with this new LIV tour in the fold, is definitely good to see where the next generation is coming from. And there's been some exciting amateurs this year coming straight from college and making their way up the ranks.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, and we're not going to touch on this too much, but just two interesting points on the LIV stuff. One, trial date set by the judge for January of 2024. So we're looking at a long one here. And unless LIV gets some official world golf ranking points, then some of those players are going to definitely fall out of these majors and in the top 50 or 60 that usually gets you into these things. And two, Taylor Gooch actually, without playing since June on the PGA Tour, finished 29th in the FedEx Cup standings. Historically, top 30 in the FedEx Cup would get you into all the majors for the next year. As a guy who hasn't won a major previously and is not exempt for the next 5 years, like Cameron Smith would be, that was his path to the majors. So not sure if there's legal implications there. Obviously, the temporary restraining order was denied, so he wasn't allowed back on the PGA Tour temporarily, but he still did finish 29th on the original FedEx Cup standings, not the new adjusted ones. So I wonder if there's any implications there and him qualifying for the majors.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it's up to the majors, and I think this year they all let the LIV players play, but I could definitely see that being different next year with a little bit more time to stew over it. But I think you're right. Naturally, without world golf rankings points, some LIV players will fall out of the top 50 in the world and will miss out on their exemption that way. Also, there is 7 more players of the top 125. So those who qualified for the FedEx St. Jude, the top 125 FedEx Cup point rankings players, 7 of those players are yet to have announced to go to LIV. That could be guys like Cameron Smith, Adam Scott, maybe Mark Leishman, or Leishman might have already went. But guys that we have suspicion of going to LIV, but we don't know for sure. But do expect 7 players to defect following this week's Tour Championship, maybe after the President's Cup. So we're about a month away from the President's Cup. Obviously, this is the end of the PGA Tour season this week. So sometime in the next 30 days, we do expect at least 7 more players to be going.
Yeah, and I know they want people right after the Tour Championship ends because they want people at this Boston event, and the President's Cup is obviously a PGA Tour sanctioned event. So don't think they care too much about interfering with that. Not sure if you know which course they're playing at in Boston, or you have any info on that course. Do you know at all?
It's called the International. It's actually out closer to Worcester, so it's about an hour drive from Boston. Obviously, they use Boston as the big name city nearby, but I don't know a whole lot about it. It's obviously a very old club, just naturally being in Boston, but should be a pretty good looking course from the aerial views I've looked at on Google Maps. But don't know a whole lot about the setup or how it's going to play. If it's anything like Pumpkin Ridge in Portland, I think, with the natural tree line, maybe a little bit of thicker rough, it's not going to be easy. And we haven't seen, the easiest courses on the LIV circuit just yet. So excited to see how those guys do. If I was LIV, I would be looking for maybe a little bit of easier setups and let those guys go low, make it a birdie fest, because it's been a little tight around the leaderboard most of the way through, and maybe that's good for the team aspect. But I want to see a birdie barrage for these, especially this first year where it is an exhibition, as they call it.
Yeah, I don't think they've had too many low scores. Obviously, only 54 holes, so a little less than what we're used to seeing. And actually, a few more points on the live thing. So the Wall Street Journal, I think, got a hold of Hudson Swafford or Taylor Gooch's contract. I think maybe one of each, and I'm sure all of them are different. But there were actually bonuses for winning majors in the contract. There was you had to wear live apparel, you had to like recruit for live and stuff like that. So there's, I mean, those are just two examples. I'd love to hear more stuff, more snippets about what's in some of these contracts. But with everything that was announced with the PGA Tour today, wonder if there's some regrets. Live still getting a lot of upfront guaranteed money, which you aren't in the PGA Tour. It's you still got to earn that. But it's interesting what's going on in the golf world, and it's a lot of content for us fans.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing change. And as we said in the beginning, there's a lot more on the PGA changes that were announced today that we'll get on through the off season. But at that point, Phil Mickelson is kind of leading the charge for his legacy with Live. He left PGA Tour behind, kind of cold turkey, not without really burning a bridge. And then Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, on the other hand, on the PGA side, they announced a Monday night league, 6 teams of 3 players each, and they're doing kind of a cross of tech and sports. So it's like an indoor arena style setup where, it looks like simulator golf, maybe even closer to Top Golf or a simulator bay that you might have at home, but with an arena setup. So a lot more to come on that. That's not starting until January 2024. But it's interesting to see, and my only point of note here is, Tiger's going one way and Phil's going the other way with their legacies and what they're going to do for the future of golf. The one thing for sure is the future of golf is going to look different, and it's good for us fans right now to see what these changes bring.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you got Tiger, obviously, because of his injuries. You expect him to play, I don't know, the 4 majors and maybe a couple of tournaments throughout the year. But based off the new live schedule, Phil, who's older than Tiger, is pretty much committing to like 14 events plus maybe the 4 majors a year. So it's interesting that Phil in his latter years is committed to more golf than Tiger. I know injuries are circumstances, and there's been some rumors and questions about Phil's financial needs. Obviously, we don't know much about that, and Phil has said his family's financially stable and always has been and always will be. So a lot of speculation there, but it's just interesting how their career paths are going, just like you said.
Yeah, separate ways, absolutely. Well, let's jump over back to East Lake, the finale, playoff finale, Tour Championship, top 30 players in the FedEx Cup, all 30 of which players you'll see at the beginning of the 2023 calendar year in Kapalua at the tournament of FedEx Cup points list winners. And we'll jump right into our picks with Mr. Garrett going first, Mr. Joe going second, and we actually swapped the order. So Willy's going to be going third, and I'll be going fourth, and that's based on our season-long standings, because this event is a little bit different, and we've got a little 10-minute warning here, so we're going to fly through this. But yes, G, Joe, D, Willy, and Mr. G is going to go with Scheffler number 1 right off the bat, and Joe opted for Xander. So Scheffler, the obvious pick at -10, and Joe with Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, Joe taking Xander number 2. Not sure he understood the circumstances of the staggered start with Mr. Cantlay being 8 under. So I'm gonna just go Cantlay. And sorry, Mr. Joe.
Yeah, I really wanted Cantlay last week, and I actually debated. I was on a flight as we were texting, and I was seriously considering changing my pick from Ju Young Kim to Cantlay. That would have had a 14-stroke swing for me last week, and it would have been easy first place. But I would have wrapped up the season right there, and it wouldn't have been as fun this week. So we at least have something here. So
just for those, got it wrapped up anyway.
Just for those keeping score at home, Willy needs to win and pick the winner correct, which he has a very good chance to do with Cantlay. So this swap is, in fact, crucial.
Crucial.
But if Willy is able to pick the winner correct and win this tournament, he would edge me by half a point to win the season-long standings.
That's what the fans are rooting for, D.
You know, we're keeping it interesting in this last week. The Tour Championship, why not? Basically, race to the finish between Willy and I here.
And there's stuff on the line. Like, you come in last, you have to, then the person at first, they get 2 redos in a match play situation. So, and
that's true.
The viewers out there, they don't know. Joe sent us a video. He's playing with Garrett over the weekend. Garrett had a tap-in eagle, like literally 6 inches out. Joe could have just been like, nope, redo. And Garrett's tap-in eagle is done over, and who knows what happened. So
yeah,
that's what's on the line in these last couple of weeks.
Probably not putting that 233-yard 4-iron to a tap-in again if you had to redo that. So good point. Good point. Well, yeah, I really would like those those redos. But I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy. Down the list a little bit, I think he's starting at -4, but you know, he's been playing solid and one of my favorite players, so I'm jumping right with Rory.
Yeah, and loves Eastlake, and shout out Joe. Xander loves Eastlake too. Always has. So
now, Rory's got to win there. G, I'm gonna go ahead and say JT at -3 for the guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And then let's see what Joe's next pick would be. So Xander, Scheffler, Cantlay, Rory, Cam Smith for Joe, which also makes sense. So JT and then Cam.
Yeah, hard to pick against Cam right now. I know he didn't play last week, had to withdraw because of a sore hip. Always concerning, but he's a scrappy player. So I guess that leaves me. I'm gonna go with Sam Burns. I mean, he's at 5 under. I think Rahm's the better player, but Sam's got a few stroke head start. He's just been playing so well this year. So I think the head start kind of puts him ahead of Rahm in this situation.
Yeah, and that's gonna leave Rahm with me. I'm definitely taking the guy who's gone T5 and T8 in the playoffs so far. I like Hideki at -2 for Mr. G.
Yeah, he's
one of his horses. So far, G's loving his team, I think. We'll see if he has any changes early in the morning tomorrow. Joe is then Young Hove, Victor Hovland.
Wow.
We're moving. Joe gave us his top 10 picks, and that was his 8th pick of the 10. So we're moving through them.
Yeah, solid.
What are you going with?
So I think I'm just gonna go with the hot hand right now. Actually, I'm gonna go against what I was gonna say. I'm gonna take also a guy who's been playing well, not the hot hand I was talking about, but I'm gonna go with Sungjae, starting at 4 under. Also with Big Tony, but Big Tony was missing a lot of fairways last week, and I think Sungjae is just gonna hit more fairways and more greens and just go lower.
I like that. I think I'll go Big Tony. He started out weak in the beginning of last week, but he finished strong. I'm hoping it rolls that into Eastlake, and he's got 4 strokes there. So I'll go with Big Tony there to back you up. And then Mr. G's last pick.
Probably he's been picking Morikawa a lot.
He has been picking Morikawa, the cow guy himself. All right.
Yeah, he doesn't like Horschel anymore. I would say either the 2 cow guys or Adam Scott, but he's at even.
We'll go Morikawa, and he can change it if he wants.
Okay.
And then Joe's last pick, Cam Young. That's a solid Joe pick.
Nice. Yeah, he's at 3 under too, so it's actually pretty good.
And then your last pick with a chance to swoop first place.
I think I'm just gonna go with the US Open winner, Fitzpatrick. He's at 3 under. I mean, I want to go Wise, but if you got the US Open winner starting 3 strokes ahead of you, you're at a pretty severe disadvantage. So I was just gonna go with the chalk and pick Fitzy.
All right. And with the last pick, I am pretty happy with my squad. I don't think it's been a long time. I know I have had these two players together, but Rory and Spieth on the same squad. Also a big Rom fan, ASU guy, and then Tony. Yeah, a couple wins recently for Tony. Spieth, up and down player, but can certainly do it. Rory with a win at Eastlake, and Rom with the T5 and T8 so far in this playoffs. We'll see.
Dude,
This is going to come down to it.
did you hear that exchange on the range that got like live audio broadcast between Spieth and Justin Thomas?
No.
So they were like, Spieth was at the range hitting balls, and it was either like Tuesday or Wednesday before the BMW, and Justin Thomas is just like giving him, they're just watching him swing. I don't know. They're talking about what's going on, and Justin Thomas is like, I think you should like do this, like try to get more steep this way. And Spieth's like, dude, that's what I've been trying to do for 2 years is get more steep. And I'm just thinking, 2 years he's been working on this, like 2 years. That's insane. Like I go out there and I'm like, dang, I like did this one thing at the range. I should be perfect now. And you got professionals out here doing stuff for 2 years and can't figure stuff out. Like that is insane.
Spieth's been in and out of that long practice swing, whatever that is. He gets very flat at the top. He really levels out that club, and then he's coming down steep. He's been missing right more than left, especially with irons, I would say. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, it's been a different looking swing for Spieth recently, I guess, for about 2 years. And from where he was 2 years ago to today is almost night and day, because he was in a dark place about 2 years ago.
Yeah. He needs to heat up that putter again.
That was a big stat for him. I couldn't believe. I mean, he's been really, really bad with this putter lately, and a lot better than any of us, but bad for him. And it's just kind of shocking to see. But yeah, excited for this one. We've got the Tour Championship, the playoff finale, live from Eastlake, getting started tomorrow, Thursday, August 25th. And we are back for one more week of the 2022-2023 season. Who is going to come home with it? Willy needs Cantlay or maybe Burns to sneak up there and win if he wants a chance at taking first place out from underneath me. I've been sitting in first place most of the season, but we're loving it. We've got one more week to go before we start fresh, and we have all of the off season to cover anything and everything. But let's go. Let's get this Tour Championship. Go like and subscribe. Instagram, YouTube, Spotify if you want to listen to this podcast. And we are on TikTok as well. Go check us out, 19th Fairway. We appreciate it. And we'll see you after the Tour Championship.